In the last episode of All IndyCar, we talked about Townsend Bell, a driver who was never given a real shot in IndyCar despite his success in Indy Lights and the Barber Dodge Pro Series. Today we talk about Jon Beekhuis, one of my favorite former IndyCar journalists. Welcome back to All IndyCar, the motorsports history show looking at the most interesting stories in American open-wheel racing. Jon Beekhuis was born March 31st, 1960 in Zurich, Switzerland. His father was a student at the Swiss Institute of Technology, hence Jon being born and raised in Europe. He was still an American boy, and much like most American boys at the time, Jon wanted to become a racing driver. Jon was a 1972 and 73 Western U.S. Quarter Midget champion. He was also the winner of the 1978 Jim Russell Racing School World Scholarship. He raced in the British Formula Ford Series in 1980, as well as the British Formula 3 Series the next year. After this, he returned to the United States to race in Super Vs and later IMSA GTOs and GTPs for Ford. He then won the Russell Pro Series Championship in 1986. When trying to figure out results for this series, I saw absolutely nothing about this. A quick Google search of the 1986 Russell Pro Series Championship only yields results of the show Matlock and brake hoses for a Harley Davidson. Anyways, in 1987, Jon raced in Formula Atlantics, mainly racing in the Western Series, but making a one-off start in the Eastern Division at Memphis. The field for this one-off entry for Jon was pretty stacked too. Some names include 1996 kart champion Jimmy Vasser, 1994 Le Mans 24 winner Jeff Krosnoff, Formula Atlantic legend Steve Sheldon, son of three-time F1 champion and future F1 driver himself David Brabham, sports car commentator for NBC and CBS Calvin Fish, future kart racer and entry to this series Parker Johnstone, future Indy Racing League racer Scott Harrington, future kart champion, professional Canadian, current NBC commentator for the NTT Data IndyCar Series and future Benetton F1 test driver Paul Tracy, and of course, Jon Beekhuis. Jon was actually teammates with Parker Johnstone this year. Jon finished 4th in the West Coast Formula Atlantic Series, right behind his teammate in the championship. The next year, Beekhuis would move up to the American Racing Series, the tadpole version of the current Indy Lights Series that we all know and love. The opening race of the 1988 ARS season at Phoenix would be pretty bad. Jon would DNF after a lap 4 wreck. The next race at the Milwaukee Mile 2 months later would swap a lap 4 crash with a 4th place finish. Portland later that month would see Beekhuis get his first podium in the ARS series in only his 3rd start. He would get 2 more 4th place finishes in a row at Cleveland and Toronto. Then, on July 24th at the Meadowlands, Jon Beekhuis would win his first ever ARS race. Unfortunately, this would be followed up with a 12th place finish at Pocono, but that 12th place finish would be his only non-top 5 finish of this entire season. He rounded off the year with a victory at Mid-Ohio, 2 runner-up finishes at Road America and Laguna Seca, and other top 5 finishes at Nazareth and Miami. This saw Jon Beekhuis win the 1988 American Racing Series Championship, edging out Tommy Byrne by only 3 points. At the beginning of 1988, Jon Beekhuis thought his career had slammed straight into a concrete wall, but by the end of the year, he was champion and was completing a test session with Benhausen Racing at IRP. For 1989, he was given the chance to race for Benhausen at Toronto, Road America, and Laguna Seca. Toronto would be the best of these races. He finished 13th on the Canadian Street Circuit, but would DNF the 2 other starts that year. 1990 would be much better, but still not be great. Driving for Pig and Gore Racing, he would start 9 of the 17 races that year with the best finish of 8th at Michigan for Gore Racing. Sadly, this season would be the peak for Jon Beekhuis' IndyCar career. Over the next 2 years in IndyCar, he only entered 3 races and only started 2 of those races in 1992 with AJ Foyt and Walker Motorsports. After the 1992 Marlboro 500 came to a close at Michigan, Jon Beekhuis would leave the IndyCar world as a driver, but he would make a return as a member of the media. This would be the end of a forgotten yet fairly successful career as a driver, but this would just be the beginning for his career in journalism. From his IndyCar departure up till recent times, Jon Beekhuis has been a commentator, pit road reporter, and general media personality for ESPN, NBCSN, Versus, and ABC. Jon Beekhuis is probably one of the most underrated media personalities in motorsports and one of the most obscure champions in the world of American open wheel racing. He grew up and raced in a similar time period as Paul Tracy, Jimmy Vasser, Jeff Krosnoff, and even fellow media personality for NBC, Wally Dallenbach Jr. Jon Beekhuis raced alongside some of the best there's ever been, and he commentated races with some of the best as well, so it's just a matter of time before people see him as the best he is. A speedy driver, a legendary commentator, and a very good person as well.